It's something that we talked about heading into this game. You know, got to get Curry going, got to get Clay going if you're the Warriors, but trying to get some production from these other starters. They're bigs, your Barnes, your Greens, your Bogut's. Another really bad game from all three of these guys. Very, very bad. And Steve Kerr has to think, going into Game 4 in the first quarter, how much leash do I give these guys, especially Bogut and Draymond Green? Because even in the third quarter, he went to Bogut a couple times. He force-fed him to try and get him going, to try and give him the handle on the ball and sort of play make for guys. And it wasn't happening. And that's when David Lee came in, late in the third and really set things up. They're not even respecting Draymond Green right now, or even Bogut for that matter. Any sort of pick and roll situation. So if it starts with Green coming over on Curry, they want to prevent Curry from getting any sort of look. So the big shade's over, and they just leave Green. And Green had his looks last night. Oh yeah. Again, it's something we talked about going into the game. He's going to have an open look at the three-pointer. If he wants to put the ball on the ground, he can go in there. And last night he did both of those things, but he just did them poorly. He continued to struggle shooting the three-pointer. I mean, his confidence is completely shot. He's hit one jump shot in this entire finals right now, one. And then when he's like, okay, the shot's not falling, I'll start driving. Well, it felt like every time he went in there, Mozgov was there, and just the verticality, showing off the Roy Hibbert there with the arms straight up. He just can't get anything to drop inside either.
I think it's genius the way that they're not really playing him at all. They're not even, when he catches the ball at like 18 feet, they won't even jump out of him. They're like, we know you're going to drive into us. Mozgov just waits, and he's huge, and Draymond Green is a way smaller guy, so he's ready for him at the rim. It's very smart, and it's very interesting to see, especially when you consider the Warriors are playing the Cavs the exact opposite way. The Cavs want just the role players from the Warriors to try and beat him, whereas LeBron is obviously killing the Warriors.
You wonder how much positive gains from the last series when they were playing the Hawks that the Cavs had with this sort of situation. They were like, Millsap, let's see if he can hit a shot. Let's see if Paul Millsap, and he's an all-star, let's see if he can beat us, carry the offensive load. They were doing something very, very similar, trying to prevent Teague there from any sort of driving, because they didn't want him to obviously get in there and then find the open shooters and three-point shooting. It was the same thing, and it worked in that series, and they're sticking with it, and it's working with Green. It's weird to see Green, a guy so important to the Warriors, defensively, offensively, all season long. There's a reason they've got 80 wins here on the combined season. He's a big part of it. But right now, he just can't buy a bucket. Yeah, they've got 4 to 6 eyeballs on Steph Curry, and they can do that because Draymond Green's not producing. Or Barnes. I mean, Barnes for that. But with Harrison Barnes, he had another 0 for night, which happened also in Game 3 of the Houston Rockets series. And will he return to form like he did in that Rockets series? He had an 0 for, but then he produced 14 and 24-point performances in Game 4 and Game 5. And I feel like once their offense gets in a flow, like if it has to be David Lee that gets on there to get them in that flow, then I think Harrison will produce. Harrison's getting killed on the defensive end, which is a huge worry. But Steve Kerr was asked about this by our own Lee Ellis after the game, and we'll show you that question in a little bit. And Steve Kerr, I mean, he just feels like Harrison Barnes is his guy, and I'm not sure that you rattle your team at this point by taking him out of the starting lineup just because it's 2-1 in the NBA Finals. Your team is really young. Do you do that to them right now? I mean, we could talk about
I would.
Yeah?
I'd go with Iguodala over Harrison Barnes just because I think he's better on LeBron, which is a huge thing. Is going to make it a little tougher, and I think Harrison Barnes will probably enjoy getting a chance to rest so he can have his legs when he wants to shoot the ball. I think that Iguodala gives him a huge chance to win over Harrison Barnes.
Okay,
short
leash for sure. For sure. Yeah. What about the David Lee scenario? I mean, he does come in, they're down huge.
That's great.
Lee comes in there, and suddenly, because this is the one guy right now that the Cavs were like, well, we have to respect him as a bit of a shooter or a playmaker because we're staying off of Green. And he attacked, and if he didn't score, he got to the line, and if he didn't do either of those things, he was finding guys. I mean, the pick and roll with Curry was working with Lee. Is this something, I mean, we heard Kerr asked about it after the game. He said, yeah, we're probably going to get some more David Lee here. It worked.
Yeah, you don't often hear a coach post-game say, yeah, we're doing that. I mean, yeah, he came in and helped out, but I think Steve Kerr is pretty frustrated with his bigs and the way they're producing it. We didn't mention Draymond Green's back issue, which could be an issue for him, but David Lee just makes Steph Curry feel so comfortable out there. He just gives him space. You have to pay attention to David Lee. Liability on the defensive end, a little bit, sure. But, maybe you pair him with Bogut because Bogut, is still doing a decent job defensively. He could use some help on the defensive end as well. But David Lee just makes Steph, at this point, feel really, really comfortable. He gives Steph that space. He gives everybody that space. So, yeah, we'll see David Lee.
I think we will as well. But I wouldn't expect what we saw there in Game 3. And the biggest reason, if we see Lee earlier, let's not forget, when this comeback happened, this was at the end of the game. And Lee was exploiting it. Him and Curry worked well. Curry was hitting his threes against a very tired Cavs defense. For the third straight game, we saw the Cavs, because they have no guys, they have the shortest bench going right now, just extremely fatigued.
Yeah.
So if you do this, I understand it works with Lee because you have to respect him as a little bit of a shooter and a playmaker. And Green, again, they're not respecting him. But it will be against a more engaged defense because they'll just have a little bit more energy in the game. I don't think it'll work quite as well.
Well, David Lee also hasn't really played at all in the playoffs. He's, I'm sure, not a part of the Cavs' game plan at all. But going forward with Steve Kerr, letting everybody know that David Lee's going to play, they're going to have a bit of a plan for him. His impact probably won't be the same going forward, but they need his playmaking. He's really good at catching the ball on a roll and finding somebody else.
That being said, I think Steph Curry's problem, a bit of it is just mental. And I think having David Lee out there just gives him some space and gives him some confidence. And Steph doesn't care whether it's a tired defense or a fresh defense. He can kill any defense when he's mentally right and he's mentally into it. And I think David Lee can help in that regard. If the offense isn't going well, the first few minutes, whether it's Barnes, Bogut, I'm talking like 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah,
quickly.
You bring in David Lee because that'll help Steph. I mean, we're talking about a 2.5 quarter run here, 2.5 quarter spread where Steph Curry didn't hit a shot. Yeah. And I think David Lee would help
3 points through 30 minutes or whatever it was.
It's bonkers.
In games. I think the dilemma is, though, with Kerr is like, he looks at what's happening here in this series and he goes, defensively, because of Green and because of Bogut, I mean, we're still good. I mean, we're not giving up 110 points.
No, the offense is the problem.
Yeah, the offense is the problem. So then he's like, well, do I just hope that the defense stays with these guys and someone just starts hitting shots for us, be it Green, Barnes, Curry, even a little bit earlier, Clay, whatever. Or you're right, do I say, well, look, we got to get some baskets here. We got to just outscore this team. And do you go to a guy like Lee early? That's a heck of a dilemma in the finals in Game 4.
I underestimated just how much inexperience has shown through in this series. And David Lee and Andre Iguodala, David Lee not known for being a physical guy and throwing around his weight, but that's what he's doing when he's out there. I mean, he stopped LeBron on one play, and he just gets it. He knows there aren't many chances to win in the postseason. I think him and Iggy are going to come off that bench, whether they start or not, whether Iggy starts or not. They're going to come off that bench and play significant minutes, because they are experienced guys. Even if it's not in terms of finals, they're just experienced in this league, 30-plus-year-old guys.
But if Lee does get in here and gets a majority of minutes, I mean, the Cavs on the other end are going to put Lee in a pick-and-roll situation every single time. And he's a great offensive player. He's struggling defensively.
But the Cavs aren't running a ton of pick-and-roll
They will put him in every single one.
As soon as he came in, you saw he got posted up right away. They brought him into a pick-and-roll, and that was playing about 5 minutes. If he is playing 30 minutes in a finals game, they're going to put him in so many scenarios that he has to guard somebody. And he does a pretty good job on the glass, which will definitely help. Yep. But I do think that the benefit that he gives you on offense probably would outweigh what's happening negatively on defense, since LeBron is killing whoever's guarding him anyway.
We saw it right there. What do you guys think about Andrew Bogut?
Andrew Bogut is struggling. I mean, that's why I'm kind of quick to put in David Lee, because we're seeing plays all over the floor with Draymond Green and Andrew Bogut just making mistakes.